Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an independent radio show with headquarters in Scandinavia and North America. My name is Henrik, and we work tirelessly to rip off and burn the mental straitjacket of political correctness to make you accustomed, once again, just like your ancestors, your forebears, to not only start using your brain without self-censorship, but also to be able to speak like free men and women again, to say it like it is, and to free yourself from the mental bondage that has prevented you from seeing reality for what it really is. We do this so that you can stand up and fight and become part of the resistance against the forced implementation of the Kalergi Plan, the founder of the European Union, and make the plans of foreign colonization of countries founded and built by Europeans a failed parenthesis of history. You know, if equality is what these folks pushing it really believe in, then they don't hold true to those values and principles because, let's face it, Europeans have been singled out as the only oppressor in history, while every other people who had the means to do so worked tirelessly to achieve those same goals. So we expose this double standard and hypocrisy and focus on many other subjects and topics connected to the transformation for the worse of our civilization. If you want to find out more, redicecreations.com is the website. And if you want to go straight to the radio show, rediceradio.net is the place to go. Today we're speaking with Jay Weidner. He is an author, filmmaker, and a Hermetic scholar who's known for his ongoing worldwide quest to find clues to mankind's spiritual destiny. He is the director of the popular documentary Kubrick's Odyssey, among several others. He's been featured on the History Channel, and he's a program director for Gaiam TV. Ahead, an important update with Jay Weidner about his latest work. Stay tuned. Hey, Jay, welcome back. It was a few years ago, I think. Thank you so much for coming back with us. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. How have you been since we last spoke?
Really good. I've been very busy, and I'm, doing research and studying things, and I think I'm part of a research community right now. I think we're reaching some very definite conclusions about things and where things are going. And that's good, and it's also really bad because the truth is not as bright as we would hope.
Well, exactly. I'm afraid you're correct. I mean, I wanted to bring you back as well to speak about a number of things, both the war on Disney, which I know is something you worked on for some time now, but also the views from your end, if you will, in regards to what's happening in Europe right now with the invasion and everything else. I also know that you, of course, have made a new film, The Last Avatar. We'll make sure to get into that a bit later as well. But I wanted to begin to touch on a few things that we discussed basically last time and kind of where we left off, because then we were talking about the fall of the West, the destruction of Europe, and things hasn't certainly improved in that capacity. It's gotten worse and worse all the time, and it's not easy to see that we're going to get out of this situation without some kind of major cataclysmic, catastrophic situation, if you know what I mean.
Well, I do. I'm very worried about it. I've been worried about Europe for a long time. Make frequent trips there, and every time I go there, it's worse than the time before. And my last trip was last October, and I was actually quite horrified by what I witnessed. So I can see now what the whole thing is going on here. And what this did was it made me. What happened actually was I became aware of this guy, Jonathan Cahn. He's an economist here in the United States, and no, his name is not spelled C-O-N. It's it's spelled C-A-H-N, but it is a Khan.
Mm-hmm,
and
right.
Basically what he's talking about is that there's these 7-year cycles called the Shemitah. And he says that we are now in 2015 going through the final of a 49-year cycle, which is like a jubilee, and this is going to be the big one when everything's going to fall apart. Well, I started thinking about that, and I started looking back at these 7-year cycles, and indeed, he did touch on something. There is a 7-year cycle. Why he brought this forth, I don't know. It certainly didn't begin in 1966, 49 years ago. It actually began 10 7-year cycles ago in 1945, and Germany bookends these cycles. Germany has something to do big with this whole thing. And in 1945, we have, of course, the defeat of Germany. And then 7 years later is the first of these 10 cycles, 1952. This is the only cycle where apparently we get a break, because nothing much happened in 52 outside of the fact that in that 7-year cycle, we managed to create in the United States the national security state, NSA, the CIA, the United Nations. All these things were created in that 7 years. But we did not have an economic downturn in 1952 anywhere that I can see in the world. But that's the last time. In 1959, we have a fairly big recession, both in Europe and in the United States. And that's 7 years from 52. Then 7 years from 59, we have a pretty big stock crash in the United States, 1966. 1973, we had the oil price spike, if you remember.
Yep.
1980, we had the Carter recession getting Reagan elected. 1987 was Black Monday, wherein the stock market crashed in the worst crash since 1929. 1994, 7 years later, we also had the worst stock market in years. 7 years later from that is 2001. I don't need to say any more about 2001, I don't think. We know what happened there. Not to mention also the dot-com crash, but also 9/11. 7 years later is 2008. Again, I don't think I really need to say anything about 2008. We already know about 2008. And now we come up 7 years later to now, 2015. Exactly 70 years since the end of World War II. Exactly 70 years since the supposedly the invention of the atomic bomb. All these things, right? And you can see that there's a 7-year cycle going on, and it is associated with something, but that something is actually the Kabbalah, because the Kabbalah, it emphasizes both the 7 and the 10. And so what we have here is some kind of Kabbalah working, is what I'm thinking, in which the beginning of the destruction of Europe is in 1945, and the end is now with the invasion of what's going on. And, these Syrians, as a presidential candidate Donald Trump likes to point out, when he looks at the video, I see the same thing he does. I don't see refugees.
No,
I don't see migrants. I see an army of 18 to 25-year-old men pouring in. There's no women. There's no old people. There's no young people. It's just these men.
Yep.
And they're pouring in. And even worse, they're not going into the cities. They're coming into small towns, especially in Germany.
Yeah, taken over completely. So about 100 people were sent into this small village of very few. Or 1,000 actually was. I see here. So
I think it was 400 refugees for 1,000 people in the town. And it was like outrageous.
Yeah.
And these people can bring people in. They can bring relatives in.
Yep. This
is the invasion. It's not going to be a violent invasion. It's going to be a slow, steady invasion. And I contend that this is the plan. And also, this goes also back to people will be saying to me, later, oh, well, why would they be doing this? Why would these secret societies that are running the world, want this to happen? And my contention has been for quite a while, and it's backed up by research by a guy here in America. I don't know if you know him, John Wasserman, who's written a book about how the Freemasons converted to Islam back in the Templar days. The old man in the mountain converted the Templars to Islam. And when they came back to Europe and they built the cathedrals, those were really kind of their mosques. And I one time confronted a 33-degree Mason in front of a bunch of people, famous people, actually. And I said that Freemasonry is really an Islamic religion, and your rites and practices are all based on Islam. And the old man in the mountain who converted you guys. And he did not deny it. I was stunned. and that this is what they want. This is the world religion that they're going to foist on us.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's well, as far as I'm concerned, I see Christianity as a whole as a fall for Europe. I see it as all as kind of Abrahamic, to be honest. But I think allegedly, at least on the surface, they don't deny that. Allegedly, you're supposed to be able to worship anything you can in the lodge, but it's as much Judaic and Islamic and Christian to me when I look at it from the outside, and that's really what I've seen as a weakening of Europe as well. It's a universalist religion. It doesn't take into account the numerous differences we've had in the tribal and pagan consciousness of Europe and whatnot. And I think it's been a bad thing in the long run for all of us.
Well, I totally agree with you, and they, like I think I said on your program once before, which I got in a lot of trouble for, but I don't care. We were finally getting rid of Christianity, and now we got to deal with this, really, and and this is much worse. There's a movie called Samsara, I think that's his name, yeah, and it's like a documentary about the world, and they have these incredible aerial shots of Mecca. And the people going into the, circling, and there's just, hundreds of thousands of people. And I saw this movie and I went, oh my God, we're cooked. I mean, we're outnumbered and they're fierce and there's nothing we can do. And, right when the rebirth of pagan consciousness was coming to Europe and to the United States, now we're dealing with something that will just absolutely crush that, and I fear that's what's going on by design.
Yeah.
And also, I want to address this whole thing about the Kabbalah. What I'm not saying that there is some kind of magical thing that these secret societies have, the New World Order, whoever, and they're working it with the Kabbalah. I'm not saying that. I don't think the Kabbalah has any magical powers in it at all. I'm saying that they use Kabbalah numbers and Kabbalah magic as signals to other people within the society that this is a scam, that this is what's going on here. And I think this is true with all or most of the occult tinges at the edge of the conspiracy. I don't really know if there's even any occult at all. I think it just might be a language that they use to talk to each other, so that when you see something happening and it's got all these numbers involved in it, like 33 and all this, it's not that they're doing some kind of satanic magic, although they might be. It's more like, don't worry, this is just what we're doing here, right?
Yeah.
If you're in on the game, you'll know that this is what we're doing, so don't worry.
Yeah.
And there's a investigator, researcher here in America, somebody you might even want to interview, although he doesn't really seem to like to do interviews. His name is Miles Mathis.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, I email him and we exchange information, and I think he's really an excellent researcher. And he has started going backwards into events of the past and discovering that things like the Manson murders were probably not real, and a lot of other stuff doesn't appear to be real at all. I mean, complete fabrications. And I'm starting to really believe that is what's going on here. We're dealing with almost a very small group of people who are creating theater, and then that theater creates precedent in reality, and then we all believe what we're seeing when actually none of it is real. And that's what I think is going on here. The ISIS is a proxy army created by the United States and Israel because Putin said no to us when we were going into Syria 2 years ago.
Yep.
So they created ISIS. It's clearly obvious. Where did they get all those Humvees and those uniforms?
Oh, yeah.
And it's clear what's going on. And then Putin, who's the only adult apparently in the game nowadays, he sees what's going on, and he calls us out a couple of weeks ago at the United Nations, and then he pretty much destroys ISIS. Thank you, Mr. Putin. And Here everybody here in the United States is like, oh my God, trying really rattling for a war with Russia,
Yeah.
over Syria, and I'm like, what are you going to replace Assad with? Who are your rebels? What do they stand for?
Yeah.
Well,
look at Libya. Look at what happened there, and what
exactly.
the power vacuum that opened. This is disastrous, and as we know, this is what we're talking about. This is what is intended. This is what the intention was. And look at the way that ISIS now has. I mean, even that ISIS is being funded. It's a mercenary army to a large extent. They're not attacking Israel. That's a very bizarre thing, but. This very thing that they want to try to get a foothold into Europe as well. This is one of the objectives. And with Libya wide open and now Syria, bordering on the same situation, this is going to spell disaster for Europeans.
It is, and it's not even really their fault. I mean, it's clearly the United States, which is really the villain here, going into these countries and destroying them. What did Hillary say when Gaddafi died? We came, we saw, we killed, and then everybody laughed.
Yeah.
And it's like, really, that guy was actually one of the best leaders in the whole Arab world. You fools. I couldn't believe it.
Well, they're more nationalistic, I think, and they don't like that. We know that they didn't have a world, a bank in there, a central bank. They were a little bit more. But see, I think the way that the liberal West is agreeing to a certain extent with the invasions on the lower level of this is that they see some kind of power play, if you will, by the leaders in some of these nations, because they know they have to rule with the iron fist in some cases to keep some of these factions in place, because otherwise what happens is what happened in Libya, that some of these. The vacuum opens up and it turns into utter chaos. And we, from our liberal progressive mind, we see, oh my God, there's attack, or he's suppressing some people that want to voice their democratic opinions. It's like, it's not about that. It's about maintaining some kind of level of order in these countries. So we justify it. I think a lot of liberals in the West justify these invasions, but look at the results.
Well, they do, and the thing is that. Their ignorance is beyond astonishing. If you look at who we support in the Middle East, I'm talking about my country, unfortunately. We support Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. We support the worst of the lot. And who is our enemies? The liberals. I mean, you may not think that Gaddafi was a liberal, but compared to everybody else, he was. And who do we kill? We kill the people that are letting women have rights, that let women drive and go to college, like Gaddafi, like Saddam Hussein, and Assad, by the way. And over and over and over, we're choosing to destroy the ones that are moderate and bankroll the serious criminals. And over and over and over, this is going on, and it's becoming glaringly obvious that our foreign policy is beyond belief. I mean, I don't even. It's by design, and you're right. And the design apparently is to encourage as much chaos among all the peoples on Earth as possible. That's my final conclusion: is that if there isn't a devil, then there's something so evil at the center of this that it might as well be the devil.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it truly is the Kali Yuga, and whether they are kind of playing on, a cycle on top of it, or if this is religious or playing on people's fears, it's something that happens, and I feel that a lot of people as well are they're fleeing into other aspects that will take them far away from politics, from violence ultimately, and reality as well. And because I think that, some of the other topics that you touch upon as well, of metaphysics and spirituality and, esoteric subject, alchemy, all this stuff, that this is a luxury that we've been able to afford, if you will, in the West. But once the demographic decline of Europeans happened, once the chaotic conditions occur within our streets and whatnot, these are things that we're not going to be able to spend any time on. We're going to deal with all the utter chaos that's going to occur in our countries. There might be economic downturns. There might be a number of things. So my message here to a lot of people as well is they have to try to get their head in the game of what really is happening out there in right in front of them, and try to work with us in terms of preventing this from happening and waking up as many people as possible. And it's not only, of course, people that are into, spirituality. It's the liberals. They're completely brainwashed in all of this as well. And because, look at the, there was like choirs singing, bringing flowers and balloons and welcoming, all these invaders and stuff. And they're in Germany, they're handing out candy and stuff like that. We're welcoming this into like it was the greatest thing that we ever did. And we just, they don't understand what this is all about.
Wow. Well said. I have a neighbor here in the United States who's extremely liberal. And she's bragging. She's flying her and her daughters to Germany and is going to help facilitate the refugees coming in.
Yep.
And I was just jaw dropped when she told me. I couldn't believe it. I don't know what to say anymore. How can you have your head up your behind like that? I don't get it.
Yeah.
And they don't get it, and they're gonna go there, and they're gonna be all men, and they're never gonna question why there's no old people or women or young kids, and they're just going to think that it's really true what they're being fed. And again, it's theater, but it's deadly theater. And that's the problem with it all, is that, yeah, it's great. The Boston Marathon bombing was a fake. Great. Yeah, the guy that is convicted didn't really do it. But the problem is that there was a trial. And now there's precedent set, and for use of deadly force against an entire city here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the event was fake. Yeah, the blood never turned brown, even though it was on the pavement for hours. It just stayed cherry red, which is impossible. But so we know it's a fake. We know the whole thing was a fake. But what can we do about it? They're establishing legal precedent based on false events, and that's what's going on here. Europe legally loosens their borders. United States, CIA goes in and tries to destroy every single decent country in the Middle East, and now the refugees are pouring into Europe. And believe me, you people in the United States, you better know there's going to be Central American refugees pouring into your little small towns. That's the plan.
Yeah.
You think you can go out into the country, into your little small towns to escape what's coming? You cannot. They have targets. What is happening in Germany is going to happen to everybody. That's the plan.
Well, rape is going up. There's been how many reports now around some of these camps, or where they bring in people temporarily. It can be old dilapidated schools and wherever it is. There's women in Germany that are young women, girls are being encouraged to cover up and things like this because it's offensive, right? Germans are being kicked out of their own houses. Same thing in Sweden. All these, the elderly care is absolutely just booting out the old. They're literally kicking them out. There's tent cities going up. It's so. At what point do people realize what's happening and begin to take their own side? It's not about not helping others, but this way that the native population are being utterly bypassed, and the way that they are utterly despised by our leaders. What is it going to take for these people to wake up?
I don't know, but Saudi Arabia, our good buddy, they're not taking in any refugees.
No.
United Arab, another good buddy of ours, is not taking in any refugees. Israel, another good buddy of ours, is not taking in any refugees.
No.
So you have to this is all by design. This is a targeted invasion. Donald Trump is right. This is an invasion.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you a little story. You can Google this too. There's a guy, a reporter for CBS, I think his name Richard Engel, here in the United States. He's in Germany, and he's reporting from the ground because, he's a really brave journalist. And he's surrounded by all of these migrants, all male, of course. And he's definitely concerned about their safety and their health. And on the left side of the frame comes apparently the only woman in this group, and she's fairly pretty, unlike the rest of them. And she walks between Engel and the camera, and then she falls, and she's supposedly pregnant. And she falls, and Richard Engel on camera, live, of course. He saves her, this migrant. And I repeat this story because it was clearly a fake news story. And clearly she was set up to do it. And clearly the whole thing was false. But, what's the point? And the point is, again, this theater, deadly theater. We're to believe that this is not a group of men coming in and invading. It's a pregnant woman who needs our help. And Richard Engel is there to help.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of stuff. And the good thing is that we're beginning to recognize all this BS. The bad thing is that they've stepped the pedal to the metal because we're beginning to figure it out, and they know that we're beginning to figure it out, and their tricks are just not working. They're doing everything they can here in the United States to get gun control passed. Why would they want to get gun control passed? Well, so as soon as they get gun control passed, they're going to bring in the next wave of Central American migrants. And they're going to be targeting small towns, your little small towns here in America, Nebraska, and Colorado, and Idaho.
Yep, that's right.
And that's what they're going to do.
It's already happening. It's already happening. Right. So they're sending in.
It is already happening.
And it's other too. I think even via the Mexico border, there's coming Muslims from other part of the world, and Somalis, and all these kinds of things. So someone is shipping them first over to Latin America, Central America, and then they come up through the border that way. It's bizarre. It's so bizarre.
It's done by design. We know who's doing it. We know who's funding it. We know it's the U.S. intelligence agencies that's doing this. Everybody knows it. Anybody in the know knows it's all what's happening here. Let's just be factual and tell the truth. We know who's doing this, and we know why they're doing it. And we are targeted for destruction. If you're black and you're living in Brazil, guess what? It's going to happen to you too. Because that's just happening here first. It's going to be a flood of chaos, and everything is going to be put into this situation. It's just that Europe has been chosen first because Europe and the United States could actually mount a rebellion against this.
Of course.
They still have the strength, and they still have the intellectual ability. They still have the reasoning skills. The people in these places could probably mount a rebellion against the New World Order and stop this nonsense, but the liberals have been so brainwashed that you can't even hardly talk them into anything.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's checkmate.
Well, whatever one might believe about the Second World War and National Socialism in Germany and all these things, one thing that I think happened is that the bankers got really afraid of the ability of the German people at that time to turn things around and to in such a short time, when they dumped the central bank and started doing their own thing and build one of the most mighty military powers in the world had ever seen. And I think that in itself served as an example for them to realize that, if they really got their head in the game here, and maybe let's say even all of Europe got together and did something like this, they could destroy the powers that are trying to subjugate all of humanity. And I think that they realized that let's try to put the lid on this thing forever. And I think we're seeing the full manifestation of that now, to somehow demographically try to challenge, Europeans and Americans in our own countries, because same thing has happened there since the 1965 Immigration Act. Since that changed too, the demographics of America has completely changed. So it's an effort they have, I think, for us to, instead of focus on space travel and science and where we're going to go next and particle accelerators and all these kinds of things, we're now spending the majority of our time and resources on effort of like trying to get minorities on TV and Muslims up in space, in a space program that's not even like functioning anymore, and it's turning into this small petty kind of details on the ground level that we spend all our time and resources on. And we're not really kind of tackling the larger questions anymore. So it's really, all of this has really aided to create conditions that is going to make it worse for everybody around, basically. And we're not going to be able to utilize the industriousness of the European people anymore, it seems like, at least from my perspective.
Well, I would say that's the point. Yeah, that's what the 70-year plan has been from 1945 to 2015, to scare the living hell out of us and then to destroy us. and they have, and the German people, are sad. I go to Germany frequently, and it's always kind of a sad experience for me because I don't know if I've ever seen a people more beaten down.
Oh, they're destroyed. Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, yeah. And it is, and they're all nervous wrecks, and there's a kind of a sense of weakness about them that just makes me ill. And so that they're perfectly set up to be the idiots to welcome in these refugees. You guys should know Merkel is a traitor. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah,
and
of course
you need to do something about her real fast, just like we need to do something about Obama real fast, and because he's a traitor too. And but apparently, the way the money system works, we're not going to be able to undo this thing. So I don't have any advice outside of, go deep inside and try to maybe grow your own food if you can, because for sure they're going to weaponize the food system. They're going to, I can see where this is going, and I'm not trying to be dark and bleak, but we have to be realistic here.
Of course.
There is a chance to turn it around. I mean, Putin is here, and, I'm going to probably freak everybody out because I actually think Donald Trump is a decent guy, and I wish he was president.
Right.
And I think he's a traitor to his own class. I think he knows exactly what the game is. I can read between the lines when he's talking. I know exactly what he's really saying, and this is why he's always constantly appealing to the vets and talking about how we have to take care of the vets. He knows that the vets know the truth about what's going on, and he knows that if he keeps saying nice things about the veterans, that he's going to in fact have his own little army. And it's very interesting to watch how he's wording things and the way that he says things, because he seems to be sending signals out to somebody that he's in on the game and that he's going to reverse the situation. So I don't know, things come into play here, and words by people like us from years ago are now being used by certain politicians, and it looks to me like in some ways the jig is up for the New World Order, especially with Putin at the UN the other day. And so it's they could be a cornered dog, which makes them very dangerous. And so we may be in that kind of situation. And the truth is breaking out all over the place. We have I guess the biggest star athlete in the United States is Tom Brady, the quarterback. And he came out like 3 days ago and said Pepsi-Cola was poison, and Frosted Flakes is also poison, I think is what he said. And, it just caused the whole food industry in the United States to go into turmoil over this. And so the truth is breaking out. And that's, also we had a debate, Republican debate, and in the middle of the debate, Donald Trump admitted that he owned everybody on the stage.
Well, he kind of did, didn't he? I mean, we don't know, kind of where he's on foreign policy. In one instance, he says he likes Putin. He would, make a deal with him that the other, conservatives wouldn't, which is a great sign in itself. On the other hand, he might be a bigger friend to Israel than some of these others. We don't know, but I think it's more about how he's approached certain subjects and the way he's done that in a very fearless way. I think that's what's coming through. They notice he's not apologizing, he's not backing down, he's politically incorrect, and I think that just breath of fresh air that comes in with that is something that's really important, and hopefully that's going to kind of blow open this idea that a presidential candidate always have to be in this rigid, very lockdown way, because he's more popular than any of the other ones. So that's a really good sign to me.
Yeah, and he's not, because he's rich, he's not owned by like the pharmaceutical company, so he can come out and trash vaccines, which nobody else has ever done. No. And horrifying all the pharmaceutical companies. He's saying these things, and he doesn't give a damn. And and I think he's probably going to be a big supporter of Israel. Maybe not. I mean, he also knows what a big pain in the ass they are to us, and probably thinks that, anybody with a reasonable outlook is going to know that we're so heavily sided, towards Israel on every single thing that it actually hurts us with every single country on earth, because, and he knows that. He knows that we're way over sided with Israel, and I think he knows it. He implies that he knows about the bankers. He implies that he knows about who's a crook in Washington and who isn't. It's all within the things. He says things that only people, frankly, in our community really know about, like John McCain and his BS past, right?
Yep.
Well, I mean, he called him out on that, but how many people in the United States actually know that? And it's very few, like maybe 1 or 2% know that John McCain is a complete bogus guy. He's no war hero. He's nothing.
No.
And, same with Kerry. He's also got a bogus past. They all have bogus past. The whole thing is bogus. That's what's amazing about it. And that's what we're all beginning to realize, is how much theater has really been played on us. Unfortunately, it's too late, I think, for it to be circumvented, but you never know. The Czech army is helping in Hungary, so there are people who are awake in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. Eastern Europe is definitely a sign of healthy, some healthy kind of national identity and preserving your own interests and stuff like that. And I mean, regarding Trump again, I mean, I hope he's not part of that theater of trying to absorb the discontent that's obvious. I mean, anybody who looks at the dialogue of what goes on the internet and in comment fields and everything else would know that, all right, we have to try to provide something that could absorb this discontent here. But hopefully he's just a smart politician that is playing ball with those issues that he has to, and then despite that he has something else going on. If he was elected, hopefully he could do something else. So we'll have to see. We'll see.
We'll see. I mean, I'm not a Trump supporter, but he's shattering the matrix on so many levels. I can't believe that he would be allowed to do that. But then again, maybe he's what David Icke calls, a steam vessel, just letting out steam.
Could be.
And it could be, and they wouldn't be. However, it is, with anybody reasonable and with some common sense looking downstream from the vantage point of right now would see that things are going to get very bad if it continues like it is. If you had $10 billion, you cannot buy your way out of what's coming. So it is actually in his interest to reverse what's happening. And so it may just be that. It may just be that he knows he can't survive it either. And none of us will be able to survive it, actually.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of other things that are starting to come to me that, I didn't really realize until recently. Like, I know a person who knows one of David Rockefeller's is one of his best friends. And he supposedly has like $40 billion. And this guy's dying right now. And guess what? He doesn't have any money. And that started me thinking, well, wait a minute here. Do any of these big rich guys really have what they say they have, or is it just part of this scam where we'll make you rich, and if you go against us, then we'll just strip your money from you, and when you die, we're going to strip your money from you anyway. And I'm really starting to wonder if all of these rich guys, does Mark Zuckerberg really have as much money as they're saying he has? How did he get that money? Is Facebook really worth that much? And you start thinking about it, it's like, wait a minute here. These are just all fabrications. The guys that started Google, they're just fabrications. They're not real. They're set up by some exteriorized agency to do what they're doing.
Right.
And it's just so obvious to me now. And they send signals again, like Google, do no evil. That's a signal that all they're going to do is evil.
Of course.
And and they work like this all the time, and they pick funny names out. Miles Mathis's recent article on the shooting in South Carolina, where the kid went into the black church and killed 9 people, right?
Yeah.
Well, there is no Dylan Storm Roof in any of the indexes of Social Security system or Intellis. Doesn't have anybody with that name in it. The guy doesn't exist. You know, and again, over and over, you look at his name, Dylan Storm Roof. Really, you expecting us to believe this? You know, and over and over and over, we're seeing that there's something really wrong here, and we have to like wake up to it. You know, I'm not saying that nobody died at this church shooting in South Carolina. I'm just saying that there's something really strange going on with that case.
Yeah,
and we need to look at it.
He was a perfect, poster boy for kind of rising white discontent in America, and pinned it, obviously. And it was like a whole convenient setup to try to, obviously, because if you looked at the Consequent Media campaign, it was basically they had the press releases ready to go. The manifesto was there. Even the photos that were available was like in a press kit release in a zip file, ready to go. I mean, it's it's a little bit too
amazing.
much, So,
yeah, he has a Rhodesia and a South Africa.
Exactly.
Come on, man. And who took those pictures? Where's this guy?
Exactly.
Right? Where's the picture guy? But also, it's related to the shooting that happened a month later. In Virginia with the news reporter.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the assailant this time is black and the victims are white, and he has a manifesto also that he's written because of the shooting in South Carolina.
Yep.
That has caused him to create a manifesto, and so he goes on his mad shooting range, which appears to have been done with several takes. Strangely enough, and again, they're all related to each other. The Walter Scott is a black kid shot by a cop about a year ago in North Carolina, I think, and he's shot in the back like 6 times by this cop,
mm-hmm.
and there's no blood. He's not. I mean, it's just like, what the heck, man? This is not how you act when you're shot in the back. I mean, it's a serious thing, and your body reacts violently to it and twitches, and blood shoots out, and none of these stuff is happening, and you're like scratching your head, going, "What is going on?"
I think the cop, by the way, the shot Walter Scott. He's in the cell next to Dylan Roof, apparently, in the jail too, which is kind of interesting,
If they're even in the cell.
Well, who knows? We haven't seen it. There hasn't been any interviews with any of these. I mean, it's amazing that no one, not even Dylan's parents, had actually gone and seen him, apparently. We looked into this and tried to find out where he actually is at the jail and all that kind of stuff. And apparently no media has been there. No one is. Okay, sure. He had declined doing interviews or whatever, according to his lawyer. But if he has this huge manifesto, want to spread this message to the world, why wouldn't he be speaking to the media then? Strange, isn't it?
Exactly. And the whole thing just reeks. The people, the families of the victims were forgiving him within 24 hours.
It's absurd.
It was unbelievable. Again, no tears, no swollen eyes, no swollen cheeks from crying in your grief. Just like Allison Parker's, the female reporter, her father, who is an actor. We've now proven he's an actor. He's an actor, and he can't cry for his daughter on the night that she shot. But he can go out for gun control and say that he's going to spend the rest of his life going after gun control. We have the Elliot Rodger shooting in Santa Barbara. Elliot Rodger's dad his name is not Rogers, it's Roger. Make that please note that, because it's a very odd name. Elliot Rodger, his dad is a big-time Hollywood producer, supposedly,
right.
And he shot 5 people, killed 5 people. Not one family has sued his dad.
Right.
Are you kidding? Are you kidding? This guy had a brand new BMW. I mean, it's unbelievable. And that's proof right there, by the way, that nothing happened, because anybody would put a suit up for wrongful death against his dad for letting this kid run around with a gun and brand new car and the whole thing.
Yeah.
Again, it's all fake.
And did you see, I have to mention as well, some of the families of Walter Scott, and also, of course, the Charleston shooting, the victims there. Walter Scott's family received $6.5 million. And
that's right.
Then you had the families, I don't know what they received combined, but it was a similar figure. I mean, they're millionaires because of that. I mean, have you ever heard about something like that? Was the victims of those that were shot on air allegedly? Did they get that amount of money? You know, it's kind of weird, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it is kind of weird. And again, no, this started with Sandy Hook, where all of a sudden the victims' families, not the victims, they're dead. The victims' families are getting money.
Yeah.
And it's like scratching your head going, wait a minute, why does the family get money? I don't understand this. You know, they didn't say they suffered, but I mean, they aren't dead. And, you know, those Sandy Hook families are making millions. And that whole thing is, again, that was really the awakening, I think, for everybody with Sandy Hook, when we really started looking into it and realizing that they would go to such outrageous lengths to pull a hoax like that on us.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Something strange with it, for sure, you know.
Oh, I have a standing offer of $10,000 to anybody who can prove that it really happened. So.
Yeah. Let's
if
pick
you want
up on
10,000,
that.
yeah, go there and get me the death certificates, and let's boogie.
Yeah.
You know, I want it all on camera though.
Yeah, exactly. Of course. Now, before we talk a bit more about your new sci-fi fantasy film, I definitely want to speak a bit more about that later. Tell us about you wrote a piece fairly recently, I believe, on how to destroy a people and their culture in 10 easy steps. To a certain extent, we've covered a few of them already, but can you run that by us? Is that fresh in your memory? We can see how they're fulfilling these plans of theirs.
Yeah, well, basically, it's you know, you have to back engineer history to understand, you know, how they're doing it, and then but by doing it, you can also begin to realize that that they seem to have a big and long plan. And events like 9/11 and other things like that are part of it. And so, you know, we wonder, okay, why did they do 9/11? Okay, they're covering up, you know, a lot of economic issues and things. But what they were really doing was setting up the Middle East for the invasion that's occurring right now. Essentially, and that's essential step in the 10 easy steps. But so what you want to do is you want to you supposedly you unite the people, like the EU. You unite the people, and then you tell them, okay, everything is safe now, so we can get rid of guns. Then you say, okay, we did that. Okay, everything is safe now. We can now get rid of borders. And you slowly set it up, and then you bring it in. You bring in the refugees, and you conquer the culture. And that's exactly what's going on. And that's why Europe, the 10th one is unarmed, unprotected, and with their own governments against them.
Yeah.
The people will now be overwhelmed by the refugees, and their country will fall forever.
Well, Jay, there are instances now that has occurred where there are criminal acts performed against the native population. There, whether that's have been violent assault crimes, if there's been rapes, or in other cases even full-on murder of people, where basically the government is not going after the perpetrator. But of course, as we know, if there would be any kind of organized opposition, let's say maybe not a vigilante group, but let's say the concerned citizens got together to try to patrol an area or try to prevent this from happening, or trying to ease off some of the rapes that are occurring, etc. Their own governments would obviously turn against them. I mean, they would bring out the military even, I think, against their own people. And it's that thing that's so unbelievable to me, that it's like we are effectively becoming prisoners in our own countries, and while this other invading group is being protected with our governments, with our means, and with our resources. It's like our hands are tied. It's unbelievable.
It is, and it's so clearly designed now in retrospect that we can see that this is the end game, and that they're doing their Kabbalah magic. There's Shemitah, and this 7-year cycle is not what this Jonathan Kahn guy is saying is going to be a big economic downturn. It's going to be an economic downturn and a big one, but not this year. It's going to be a big economic downturn from here on out because the 70-year plan is done. The invasion is going in. All the puppets are in their place, like Merkel and everybody else, and they pulled the switch. And they did it here in the United States, too. They did it last year only, not this year. And but it's still going on. It's not stopped. It hasn't been stemmed. They're letting Mexico is letting their criminals out of their prisons and sending them north. They say, if you go El Norte, baby, you can go. And they say, I'm doing it, man. And they go straight north. Same thing's happening in Guatemala, and all the Central American countries are all letting their criminals out of the jails and sending them north. This is what Trump meant by saying that these were criminals coming over. They're not all criminals, no, but they are sending their criminals. Yep. It costs $80,000 a year here in the United States to house a single criminal. Wouldn't you want to get rid of all of them if you could, because you had some stupid country north of you that was letting everybody in?
Exactly. That's right.
And that's what's happening in Syria. And they're not Syrians. They're Somalians.
Exactly.
They're letting them out of the jails. Yeah. They're all letting everybody out of the jails. And dig this. If you go and you type in Google and you say murder rate by country, okay? And you type in and you look at the murder rate by country. The UN keeps vital statistics on it. And you look, and all of the people that are the countries where they're coming from, and pouring into Europe and the United States from Central America and from Northern Africa and all those places, those are the highest murder rates in the world. Mm-hmm. And they're huge. They're not, people think the United States is a violent place. We're 6 murders per million. We're way, way, way down at the bottom of the list.
Yeah, Africa is just...
man.
It's a hellhole,
It is. It's hundreds to the millions of murders in Central America and in Venezuela and all those countries down there, and in Africa and in the Arab countries too. And and these people are coming with a murder culture to our lands.
To our liberal, weakened, naive, stupid culture. It's oh my God, it's a recipe for disaster.
Outrageous. Yeah. And I don't know what to do about it. What do you do? If you pick up a gun, they're just going to kill you.
Well, there has to be a coup. I mean, literally, there has to. I've heard from people on the inside within the police enforcement. Apparently, I'm talking about Sweden now, but the police, there are many, many people there because they are the ones who have to take the brunt end of this now. They're out there in the field. They are asking for support. I mean, they don't even go anymore to certain areas in Sweden. The ambulances have requested panzered vehicles. The fire department are taking all these detours and just not going through areas. So when cars are torched, as they are regularly now, they don't even go into some of these areas to put out the fires and stuff. So what has to happen here is that the military, the police, and all those, the managerial class in some of these countries, those who are seeking to preserve some of the order, they would have to side with a group of people that are willing and ready to do a coup to take back the power in these countries from our leaders. That's really ultimately the only thing I see that's going to fix anything here.
Well, I think that's right. We have to remove money from the system.
Obviously I agree. There's a lot of things, later on down the road that's been done. But I mean, just to be able to make a move and to affect anything at all, and to be able to have some kind of influence, the leadership, they have to go,
I agree. I totally agree. And again, going back to Trump, the only thing that he's really famous for in this country is having a reality show where he fires people. And I think that's one of his big appeals is everybody wants somebody up there to just start firing everybody in sight. And, I don't think it's going to happen because bureaucracy is so entrenched. But, one of the most interesting things I've come up against recently is this idea that the cabal or the mob, whoever this group is, what you want to call them, they've built up a technocracy around them to get what they want done. And this technocracy has now grown to the place where, yes, it's watching everything that's going on, blah, 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 we all know it. But the technocracy has also grown so big that it doesn't need the cabal or whoever they are anymore. And I think that they kind of know that the technocrats are more powerful than the mob, and by their own fault. And so I think that's also playing a thing right now. And I think that there's technocrats within the technocracy who actually know that events are going to happen before they happen because they're watching everything, and so they're actually playing with the people that are doing these events, and they're throwing wrenches in the cogwheels, you might say, so that something becomes glaringly obvious to people like us. And I think these glaringly obvious mistakes may not be mistakes. It may be the technocracy screwing with the previous people in charge.
Let's switch topic a little bit. There's many more things about this I want to ask you about later in the second segment here. But let's switch a bit and speak about The Last Avatar for a little bit here before we take a break at the end of the segment. I want to hear more about your latest film. It's a sci-fi fantasy film. It's not a documentary or anything like that. It's a featured film. Tell us why you wanted to make it, Jay.
Well, I wanted to make a film that kind of help facilitate the awakening that's going on, and in an entertaining way, so make it in some ways cool to be wide awake. And and that was really my point. So I kind of targeted the millennials as being the group I wanted to target, because I think that even though they went through this horrible educational system here in the United States anyway, they at least have an open mind about things, especially at a spiritual level. And I wanted to appeal to that. So I made a movie that appeals to people that are probably, under 35. That's what I've noticed, is that if you have a lot of investment in this society, you're probably going to be less apt to like the film than if you don't. And the younger people, of course, don't. They don't even have jobs, and they like it. They like the movie. It's like So I made a movie on purpose to kind of propagandize our side in an entertaining way. And I think I succeeded. David Icke wrote a really good review of it. Zen Gardner wrote a really good review of it. New Dawn magazine in Australia wrote a great review of it. And we're getting, really good reviews. And Hollywood doesn't want to touch us, so distribution companies are running away from us like crazy, even though their own focus groups are showing that the film would do well. So that proves that money is not the game in Hollywood. The game is not money. The game is propaganda. If you're not playing their propaganda game, they're not going to go for you. So I'm releasing it in my own way, and I don't really care. I've already lost a lot of money making the film, and I don't think I'm going to get my money back or anything near my money back. And at this point, I don't really care. I just wanted to make it to get this message out that we are in control of our spiritual destiny, no matter how much these buggers want to make our lives horrible, and that we can do things proactively to help stem, at least, the nightmare.
Well, exactly. I mean, the distribution thing seems to be the difficult aspect of this. I mean, I would agree with you that certainly somewhere along the line there just has to be an investment into trying to aid an awakening, and of course bring the message out that we want to see out there in the world and whatnot. But at the same time, it's very draining financially, and this is something that would shut down that engine, obviously, which is a difficult thing. And I've been thinking about this too a lot, because there certainly isn't any lack of subjects to touch. There certainly isn't a lack of an audience either, I think. But the difficult thing is to get it out there, to distribute it, to get it. But I mean, I don't know if regular theaters would do the trick or not. But this seems to be the big hurdle, really, of getting enough money back from a movie like this, so that you can continue to produce them and basically get to a point where you have a network pretty much of regular content. I mean, you guys have that with Gaiam, of course, TV and whatnot. So it's well underway there in that capacity. So it is doable, but it can be really tricky to get it going, right?
It is, and like Gaiam TV, which I run some of the programming for, which is soon to be called Gaia, by the way, thank goodness, and is producing some pretty cutting edge stuff. but even they have, their parameters, and you can't go to certain distances even there. And that's fine. I understand that.
Sure.
But I write. I try. Well, I'm trying to take a hammer to this thing and break it wide open, and because I realize that we're running out of time. And so that was really what I was trying to accomplish with the film, was kind of do it in a propaganda Hollywood way, fly under the radar, and make something that was entertaining, had good music and good cinematography and good acting, and get it out in a way that could facilitate this thing. And it's still going to happen. I have 100% trust that it's still going to be successful and everything, but it's not going to be successful in the terms that are thought of by most people. I don't think it's good. It's going to be more of helping facilitate the awakening than making my money back. So I may have to give it away for free at some point.
Yeah, it's a shame,
It is.
and at the same time you want to get the message out. It's a very delicate time, I guess, right now, because I think the more and more people are they're sick and tired of the messages that are coming out of Hollywood, obviously, and the opportunity there is ripe for something new to come in and obviously fill some of that void. At the same time, we don't have those $100 million budgets, let's just be real about that. But at the very least, maybe, beginning in a smaller scale and working ourselves upward. Hollywood began in that way, began doing, really like Nickelodeons and stuff like that, peep shows really, and they made their money like that in the beginning. Before moving further out over to the West Coast.
And don't underestimate, our power. I don't know if it was you guys that produced the thing on Sir George and the White Horror.
Oh yeah, that was.
Well,
me.
I think you guys got that show canceled. Actually,
I don't know about that. I hope so, but
I mean, it was doing pretty good, and then all of a sudden they just canceled it.
Really?
Like, huh? Yeah, all very interesting. Yeah. I think you might have embarrassed them, so don't underestimate it. I mean,
right? Yeah.
We do have the power to at least embarrass them by revealing what they really like.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a bit where people obviously can go and see the film. They can stream it online. They can watch it right there on their computer or tablet or whatever. But yeah, tell us where people go, and if there's anything else people should know about the film.
Yeah, well, you can go see the trailer and also click through at thelastavatarmovie.com. It's up on Vimeo. Get a group of friends together. It's $4.99, and 50 cents each. You get 10 friends. It's only 50 cents each. So, and watch it. And if you like it, spread the word so I can get all the help I can get on this film, because I'd like to get some money back on it. And that's about it. I hope you like it. That's all.
Yeah, definitely. TheLastAvatarMovie.com. We're going to have the link up to that. Also, tell us about your websites, Jay, and some of the other projects you have going. Obviously, we've spoken in the past about, some of your other films on Kubrick, of course. You have many others out there as well. Give us the websites for those. Yeah,
my free stuff is at Jay Weidner. Weidner is Weidner, and jweidner.com. And I my films, my documentaries, up at sacredmysteries.com. And I'm doing a third film on Stanley Kubrick. The reason it's taken me so long is because I've amassed a fan base of about 10,000 researchers who are turning over every stone of Stanley Kubrick ever stepped on, and I'm getting so much information on everything that I if I stop now, I will have the film will not be complete. So I'm just going to continue on and probably get the film out in a few months. It's going to be a barn burner for sure. What I found is truly, truly astonishing. There's no doubt that Kubrick was part of some kind of network. Hollywood recruited all these Hollywood directors. Somebody in the intelligence agencies, I've now proven, it recruited 7 of the top directors in Hollywood, including Stanley Kubrick, in 1964. And I believe that they were looking for a director for the moon landings.
Right, exactly. Yeah, there's a whole story there that is very interesting, to say the least. And of course, people can go and check out the first few films by themselves. But I'm with you that. I mean, it's frustrating to not be able to produce enough, quick enough. But at the same time, I think quality above quantity, or speed rather,
That's right.
is the way to go with it, and do it right as opposed to just doing it for the sake of it. So I think it's worth the wait, you know?
It is, and that's the same thing with The Last Avatar. I mean, it took me 5 years to make it because I was choosing excellence over just getting it out. And I think you're absolutely right. That's how we can win, because they make crap.
Yeah, they sure do. All right, very good. We'll have the links up to all of this and more up on the website. Please check it out, folks, if you want to find out more. But we'll take a short break here, and then we'll return with the second with Jay Weidner. So we'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you can hear a new radio show 3 times a week. We also feature Radio 314. We do videos and insight episodes. The first hour, always free, sometimes both. You can also hear us on YouTube, Stitcher, TuneIn, and on SoundCloud. When you want to hear more, please sign up for a membership at redicemembers.com for the full show. We're going to continue with Jay Weidner for a second hour. We spare you from enduring commercial interruptions and blinking banners and pop-ups on our websites. A membership is really the way to enjoy everything that we do, especially if you want to dig into our vast archives as well. We have over 1,000 programs and counting from 2006 all the way up till today. Well, please take a look in the archives. A lot of material there for you on a lot of different topics. It documents our own development and journey as truth seekers, letting the curiosity and the hunger for truth, the answers to lead the way, and kind of along the way educating ourselves about what is going on in the world and what the priorities really are. What is important and why is it important, and how does that relate to where the propaganda wizards and the social engineering masters want to lead us? What is it that they want to steer us away from, and why? redicemembers.com is the website where you can find out more, and it's only €5 per month. Try it out for a 3-month subscription. You can do recurring or non-recurring. We also have from 6 months up to 2 years available, and those are all non-recurring as well. We also have more coming, of course. David Dees, Erin Elizabeth, Lars Holger Holm, and Jenny Upton are some of the upcoming guests. Well, thank you so much for listening and for your dedication to exposing the lies that we are surrounded by daily, and that you, just as us, have decided to focus on the truth and go wherever it may lead. All right, we'll continue with Jay Weidner after the break, so don't miss it. Much more coming up. Talk to you after the break.